Welcome to the MechWorks PDM for Inventor webinar. My name is Glenn and I'll be your presenter today. Just a little bit about MechWorks. MechWorks is a PDM company with customers worldwide. We have been providing PDM since 1998. PDM is our total focus, allowing us to provide the best-in-class PDM. Let's look at some everyday challenges faced by all. Are your documents and data secure? Can the documents and data be quickly and easily found while having information presented to the users when they need it? Do you have full control of any and all changes while still keeping it easy for the users? Do you have a clear history of the changes at your fingertips? Who, when, why? Do you have the right bill of material with the information actually needed? Is the part bought or made? Is it used in a subassembly? How many assemblies is that part used in? Does the bill of material provide the information needed for each department? Is everything always made at the right revision? MechWorks allows for users to meet those challenges. Also, to only enter data once. This will provide everyone with the needed data without any retyping. It is a very configurable tool, allowing organizations to work the way they need to. So what are we actually going to look at today? Today we're going to create a file with its drawing and use the automatic numbering. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail on the automatic numbering as it's covered in its own webinar. We're going to take that part and do some revision control, life cycling. We'll look at the engineering change and workflows. Again, this we're just going to go over quickly as that is also covered in its own webinar. We're going to look at how MechWorks PDM allows you to have linked documents automatically, the document relationships, how your parts automatically are linked to the assembly and the drawings are automatically linked to the parts. We're going to look at how easy it is to create triggers to output PDFs, DXF, or whatever file formats you need. We're going to look at the MechWorks PDM browser and how it presents all the needed information to the users. We're going to look at searching tools and show how easy it is to find any and all existing documents. We're going to look at bill of materials. Do you use single or multi-sheets? How you can easily control whether you buy, make, or not even have the part on the bill of material. How this can be done on the integrated license and also on our non-3D CAD licenses, the standalone licenses. We're going to look at visual cues. This is a great tool to quickly present information to everybody who needs to see it. We're going to talk about release database mode. Really what that is that the administrator can configure the system so that you have a database for engineering where they see all the files that are being worked on, and then you have another database that only has the release documents, and that's what everybody outside of engineering sees. Local checkout mode. MechWorks PDM can be configured to work so it's across the server, or you download the files onto your local machine, work on your local machine when you check them out. MechWorks PDM is directly integrated with Inventor, Solid Edge, SolidWorks, DraftSite, AutoCAD, SpaceClaim, ME10. We have partnerships with all of those CAD systems. It is also integrated with the Microsoft Office applications. You can accommodate all of your file formats by associating file extensions to the appropriate application. Okay, let's switch over to Inventor with MechWorks PDM seamlessly integrated with it and take a look at everything we're going to today. Here we are with Inventor open with the MechWorks PDM seamlessly integrated. And the first thing the user is going to do is create a new part. So now the new part has been created, the user is going to go ahead and save this part. And just like normal, the user would select Save. This will present the user with the automatic numbering formats. Each one of these formats represent a numbering schema. Within your organization, you may only have one numbering schema or you may have many. The administrator would configure these formats for the users. And I'm not going to go into a lot of detail on this as it's covered in its own webinar. But for this particular part, the user is going to select with categories here and select OK. This will present the user with a category wizard. And again, this is covered in the automatic numbering webinar. So we're just going to select this one, select Nut, select Hex, select OK. Now this will save this part for the user and it will create the parts record card. So let's take a quick look at that. So here's the record card. These are configurable by your administrator. You can add tabs, you can add drop downs and add properties to these record cards. But you'll notice that it added the next sequential number based on the numbering format. It added the description using the category wizard. Select OK. So the next thing the user wants to do is actually create the drawing. So go in there real quickly and we'll create the drawing. We're going to use a template that's been pre-configured so that the properties go into the area that are needed. So the next thing I'm going to do is add a view to this real quickly. And put one there, select OK, move this over. That looks good. So now the user would select Save. What this will do is it's going to get the properties from the part because we automatically link the drawing to the part or the drawing to an assembly. And it's going to place those properties into the predefined areas on the drawing. So here we have the title block, the added, the description, the part number, the revision, who created it. Also in this area up here in the right-hand corner, we have the revision table, which will be automatically populated as this part is life cycled. So let's go back to the actual part itself, and we're going to save this. So now perhaps the next thing the user wants to do is add the material. So we just go up here and we'll select the material that the user wants to use. This one is good. And we can select Save. So now if we go to the record card again, and we go to the properties, now we can see added the material in there. With many of the entries that you might want for your properties, within your organization, you may want it to all be uppercase. So what you can do with the MechWorks PDM is it can be configured so that no matter how it's entered, it will always be uppercase. So if we go into here and we enter brushed in lowercase, you'll notice that it automatically goes into uppercase. The other thing the administrator can add to these record cards are drop-down menus. So instead of somebody typing in information, you can have drop-down menus and actually select the information that you want to have in there. And we'll select OK. We've created the part and also the drawing. And if we quickly go back to the drawing, you can see added that treatment onto the template in here. What the user can do now is to go back to the part. Here it is. And we're going to go through and we're going to release this document. And we're going to select Approve. Now on this particular system, it has been configured to have a numerical pre-release and alphabetical manufacturing release. It's really up to your organization to what kind of revisioning you would like to configure this to, whether it's just a single revisioning, numerical, alphabetical, or many different depths. It's entirely up to your organization. Now, one of the other things that can be configured on this system is that you as an organization probably require certain information about a document before it's released. And with the MechWorks PDM, it can be configured that if information is not there for it to be released, it will let the user know. And in this case, it's on the revisions. You can see here, this description is highlighted. This is showing the user that there is a need for information to be put in here. And what we're going to do, we're going to go in here and add that information. Initial design, and select OK. And that will also automatically add that to the drawings for the user. What he's doing here is just letting the user know that this is revision 01. We'll select OK. And as it releases this drawing, it has been configured to automatically create a PDF file of the drawing and have it as an attachment. And we'll look at those later. Okay, so now let's go to the MechWorks browser. And here is the part that we just created. It's got revision 01. So now perhaps the user wants to modify this part. So to do this, the user would go and check it out. I'm going to increment the revision. So instead of being 01, it will now be revision 02, and perhaps do some changes to this part. Select that, select this. I want to go that direction, and we can select apply. So now we've changed this part. And what the user can now do is save that. Now obviously that's going to automatically update the drawing on the changes that we've done to this particular part. So now what the user can do is go ahead and release this at a revision 02. So lifecycle, check in, approve. And we're going to put in here, and we're going to say reduced size. Select OK. So now this is showing that the user, if they have permissions, could have a chance of making it revision 02, or if it was just say a spelling mistake or something that they made and they needed to change, it could keep it at revision 01 for them. We want a revision 02, and we're going to select OK. So now we can go back to the MechWorks browser, and you can see that it's revision 02. If we go to the previous revision tab over here, here we can see the previous revisions done to that document. Then obviously this is going to remember all those previous revisions for you, zip them up, save them up. And the reason it would do this is there could be a reason for you to go back to a previous revision. In fact, let's do that. So here's the revision 2, and then here's the revision 1. And perhaps there's a lot of changes that have been done to this, but we really want to go back to the earlier revision. The user would select this, right mouse select, and then you can see it has activate, and create a new revision. So you could activate a version of revision 01, or we could create a revision 03, which would be exactly the same as revision 01. Let's do that. So it's going to let the user know, you sure you want to do this? We can select yes. So then that will check that out and make it the same as revision 01. And you can see now it's checked it out. So the user could open this up and do some changes to it, perhaps make it a little bit different. In fact, if we go into here, we'll open that. So we can say that we want it to be the old length, but we want to add a hole in it. So we'll go into here and we're going to add a hole. That's good enough. Select OK. And now we put a hole all the way through it. And we can select Save. So now the user could go ahead and approve this. And again, we're going to go in here. We can say and select OK. It's going to be revision 03. So now let's go back to the MechWorks browser. So now with this particular part, we can see here's our initial design. Here's where we reduced the length. Here's where we went back to the long length, but we added a hole in it. So at any time, a user can go back to the previous revision that they need to go to. Let's now take a look at the MechWorks browser. The first thing we want to look at is over here in the left-hand side is the project tree. The project tree is laid out in a hierarchical schema. It's going to have all your documents in there, and you can separate them and have them in different projects. Now, all a project is, it is a way to separate your documents in a way that makes sense to your organization. It could be based on your folder system. It could be based on a product or a customer. It's up to you on how you want to configure the system to have those different projects. The project that the user is working in at that moment in time is designated with this big red arrow. And you can see you can have lots of different projects in here with lots of different types of documents. Now, if the user wanted to, and you had a lot of projects with a lot of documents, they could select the project that they're working in and say, just show that project. So now there's just that project that they're working in that they're viewing. The next thing to take a look at here is that if we select on the project and we go to composed of, in this grid it's going to show you every document within that project. Just the same, if we go to an assembly, we select on the assembly, it's going to show you all the documents within that assembly. If we go to a document and we select used by, it will show everywhere that part is used. So in this case, this part is used in 2 different assemblies. It may be used in 20 assemblies, 100 assemblies. There is still only one physical document, but it may be used in many assemblies and many different projects. Looking at this tree, let's see how it's presenting the information to the users. The first thing to notice is it provides the drawing number or the ID number and the description. The next thing is the icon. The icon is showing the viewer what kind of document it is. This is an assembly. It has an assembly icon. This is a part. It has the part icon. Here we have a drawing, the drawing that we created earlier. Here it is. It has the drawing icon. Just the same as we have other types of documents in here. We have an Excel file. Now, when the user selects on this Excel file, it's very hard to read this. So we provide the full preview for this so that the user can see exactly what's in that document without leaving the MechWorks PDM. Let's go back to the tree. Also, you'll notice you can have Word documents, PDF files. You can have whatever file you need to have in MechWorks PDM. The next thing we'll notice is these colored squares. These are letting the users know the state of those documents. The red square, this is a document that is checked out to the user. We can see here, checked out by G. Ponter. So when a document is checked out to G. Ponter, he has ownership of that document. Anybody else can open that document. They can look at the document. They could do a save as to create a new document, but they cannot change the documents checked out by somebody else. Now this circle with a line through it here is showing that this document is checked out by Bill. The next square is a blue square. This is a checked in document, which means that nobody has ownership of it right now. It's not checked out, it's not released, it's just checked in. And perhaps you have it checked in because you're waiting until all the other documents in the assembly are done. Or perhaps you're going to win the lottery today and you won't be in tomorrow. Or it's waiting to go through some kind of approval process. The next colored square we're going to look at is the gold square. This is a released document. And as we mentioned earlier, a released document could mean different things to different organizations. You may just have that single revisioning released, or you may have a multi-tiered one. Whatever works for your organization, that is the way this can be configured. There's also a green square. A green square is a new document that's in the system. It's protected, it's secure, but it's not recording any history of that document. Somebody works on it, they save it. They work on it again, they save it. It is not going to remember anything before that last save. The last final square is a gray document. This is an obsolete document, a frozen document. There will be no life cycling done to this document. It is just there for referencing. Now, if needed, an administrator can unobsolete a document if you really need to use it. Okay, the next thing we want to look at the tree is what's called visual cues. This is a way of sharing information with everybody in your organization very easily and very graphically. Some of the visual cues are used in the system by default. For instance, on this machine board here, you can see it has a little paper clip. This is showing everybody that there is an attachment to this document. Let's see what kind of attachment it is. So we'll go to the attachment tab here, look at its grid, and this is the document that has been attached to this. And it is showing everybody how somebody came up with that design. An attachment is never life cycled, it's just there for referencing. Also, with the drawing that we created, this has attachments to it. You can see that it created a PDF file on every release of that drawing. So each one of these PDF files is always associated with that release of that drawing. Another use for visual cues, perhaps for this one here. This is showing that this has lead or mercury in it. So to meet RoHS, one needs to designate that document so people can clearly see that. This document here, it uses a visual cue, and if we go to the EC tab here, to show there is an ECR associated to this part. It's actually in the middle of a workflow. So there are many uses for visual cues. These are something that your organization can create as you need them to represent information to everybody in a very clear graphical manner. Okay, the next thing we're going to look at is how easy is it to find all these documents that you have in the system? Well, MechWorks PDM provides many different ways to find your documents very quickly and very easy. The quickest and the easiest way is down here with the quick search tool. Now, the first thing about the quick search tool, if the user right mouse selects over these pair of binoculars, here are all the previous searches that were done in this quick search tool. So for instance, if I select on this one, it's going to show what that search was and the documents that were in there. And there's really two ways you can search in this tool. The first one is using multiple strings. So for instance, the user could go into here and enter 07 shaft. That's what they know about that document. And then select the binoculars, and that will give them a search based on that. They could probably also go in there and add something to this. So let's add 61 so we can narrow it down. Select the binoculars. There it is. That's the document they're looking for. The other search a user can do in here is an exact string. So for instance, so we can go into here, S-76-001. So this way they got the exact document that they're looking for. Now another way of doing a search is through the advanced filter. Let's go up here to the advanced filter. So here we are in the advanced filter. And with this, the user can narrow down their search on just a few facts that they may know. First of all, do they know which project that they're going to be looking in? They can narrow down the search by selecting the project. Do they know the type of document? They can narrow down their search by selecting the type of document they're looking for. Do they know the state of the document? Was it released? Is it frozen? Whatever. They can narrow down their search that way. What they can do next is then start adding conditions. So let's add a condition here. So we can say, okay, I know this was done and it was between, say, August 1st and November 26th. So then they can add another condition to this. Or they could do a search, and they're going to get a lot of documents. So we need to narrow it down some more. So what they can do then is add another condition here. And you'll notice you can do and, ors, and you can switch some off, switch them on. In this case, we're going to go into here, and we're going to say, okay, in the description, it contains hex. And we can do a search. There, narrowed it down some more. So then what they could do is, okay, what else do I know about this? So we can go into the conditions, so add a condition, and we say, okay, we know that the part number or the ID starts with 71. And we could do a search on that. And there it narrowed it down to the exact document that the user was looking for. And of course, they could pass the mouse over it and it'll give them a preview of what that looks like, as well as relevant information about that part. The other thing the user could do here is if they have a search that they use a lot, they could save it off and then open and find that search criteria again. Okay, so let's just close these real quickly. Now, another way of doing a search is through using a query statement. So if we go to the query tab here, a user, if they understand SQL, could add a SQL statement here and do searches on documents, data, and information from the MechWorks PDM. We go to the events. Here we have some events that are SQL statements so that people like me don't need to understand SQL. So for instance, if the user selects last day release documents, we'll select that. Here is the part and its drawing that we made today. We could also go in here and get an event log on the user gPonter on everything they've looked at and touched today. If the user understands SQL, they could enter in a SQL statement. They could save off those SQL statements. They could load the SQL statements if they have any. So let's now go back to the tree, and we'll go back to this part here, and we'll go back to the preview. What we're going to look at now is we're just going to go over the engineering change process. It's going to be condensed as it has its own webinar. So we're going to go over it very quickly. We'll go back to the original part that was created in this presentation. And the user is going to go through here and they're going to check it out. The way the system has been configured is that for the numerical releases on here, which is the pre-release and the prototype releases, there is no mandate for a formal approval rejection process that requires others to approve or reject them. Now, you may require those pre-release revisions to go through some kind of approval rejection process. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this part, add it to this assembly, and then release all of them together into manufacturing. So let's go ahead and we'll open up this assembly here. While you're in Inventor, MechWorks PDM allows you to search the database for the parts that you're looking for. That nut that was created at the very beginning, here it is. And somebody wants to add this into that assembly. And we'll put it there. And we can go ahead and save this assembly with that part in it. And there it is. So now the next thing the user wants to do is to release this assembly and all the parts to manufacturing. Now to do this, we need to check this all in first. So we'll go down here and we're going to check this in. And we're going to select all the parts. And we're going to go into here and we're going to edit the revision description on all of these in one go. And we're going to say ready to make. And then select OK. And that'll check in all of this assembly and all the parts in one go for us. And if we go back to the MechWorks browser, here we have that assembly and the extra nut that we just added to that assembly. Now to release this to manufacturing on this system, it is configured to have an IR. That's the initial release. This is something you could use if you want to in your organization, but this is the way it's being configured on here. So what the user is going to do is select all of these, right mouse select at the top here. We're going to go to create new, create IR. This will present the user with the electronic IR data form. Now these forms are configurable by your administrator, so you can add tabs and drop downs to this. You'll see that it automatically received the IR number. This is the next sequential number based on the numbering system configured by the administrator. The user needs to put a description in here on what they want this to be. So we'll say ready to make. A couple other things here. Obviously you could have it so you can assign it to users, and that's configurable. Also you can have a priority in here, and you'll notice down here that it's going to list all of the documents that we've selected. It's going to have the assembly and all the parts in there. Also the drawing for that nut. So now the user could go ahead and save this. Right now it's in a new state. It has this green border around it. So if the user selects apply, this will save this data form, but it's still in an editable state. It now has the yellow border around it. So perhaps one of the things the user may want to do is add an attachment to this, some document to supply information to help people make their decisions. And we'll just select one of these documents here and we'll drop it and drag it in there. Now once this document is in there, anybody who is part of the approval process or the IR process or has privileges can go into this document and open it up and view the information that the originator wants everybody to see. Here's the information on how they made that nut. When the user has everything the way they want it, all the information that they want in there, they would submit this to a workflow. Now, obviously, within your organization, your administrator could have different types of workflows depending on the product, the customer, and whether it's an IR an ECR or whatever. In this case, it's just going to be go to engineering, then to manufacturing, and then to processing. These could be an individual person or groups of people. And today I'm just going to go through this very quickly. So I'm going to be engineering, manufacturing, and also processing. At this stage is the engineering. Who's ever approving this and looking at this and deciding what's going to go on could obviously see all the documents and investigate what's going on with each document. They could look at the attachment, see what information is there. And as they go through the workflow, perhaps they notice something that they need to go and investigate. So if we look at the reject button here, you'll see here there's a thing that says place on manual hold. This is so that the decision maker can let everybody know, hey, I'm off investigating this, I'm not ignoring it, but I need to find out some information. Or perhaps there was something they didn't like and they could send it out of workflow, or as we go through, send it back to the previous state. There is also a choice of actually sending it out of workflow and terminating this IR. It is just not ready to be made yet. But for the purposes of this presentation, everything's perfect and we're going to approve it and move it on to manufacturing. So we're going to select move it on to manufacturing. Now, as it goes through this approval process, it is going to collect signatures. Who approved it in engineering? When was the day? What was the time? It's going to keep a log. It's going to let everybody know by the log what's going on. Let's go back here to the workflow. So now we're in manufacturing and we're going to say approve. Again, this person could reject it, put it on hold, do whatever they need to do, send it back to engineering. We're going to approve it. Now, as it goes through each one of these groups of people that are looking at it, it could be configured so that as it goes between each state, it will automatically send out an electronic notification. In this case, it's an email. Now, these are configurable. They're templates. You can configure them to have whatever information you need to have on it. But for instance, it's going to list all the associated documents. It's going to give everybody the information about what's going on. Obviously, this could have notes added to it. Hey, this looks great. Wonderful. Let's keep going. Whatever. So we'll close this and we don't need to save it. And right now we're at the IR process controls. So we're going to approve this, go to the end. Now, as it's going through that approval process, it's going to use the visual cues to let everybody know that it's going through the approval process. It's going to designate which ones of these documents. So now this has gone through the IR. And if we go to the EC tab and look at its grid for these documents, you can see it has the IR and it's completed. So this is now all being released at revision A because that's the way it's configured on this system and it's in manufacturing. So the next thing we need to do is allow your users who have privileges to say, you know what, there's something wrong here. I need to do a change request. And it's pretty easy to do. So they could select any one of these documents or all of the documents that need the information, just the same as with the IR. We did all the documents. Well, at any time, that could perhaps just be one document. So somebody could say, you know what, this isn't right. It's the wrong material. So they could have right mouse clicked on the document, go to Lifecycle, go to Create ECR. You'll notice here that the data form looks almost identical to the IR form. This makes it very easy and very quick for everybody to learn and understand the information that's being presented to them. So you see here, this time it's just the one document and its drawing, the document and its drawing. We need to put in here some reason for the change. In this case, we'll enter change material to brass. So you can see now it has the green border. It's new. We select apply. It now has the yellow border. So obviously, again, you have things in it. You can assign it to a user. You'll see here's the job number of the project manager. What you can do as an organization is you can assign a person to be responsible for all of the engineering changes and all the documents for a, say, a project or a product, whatever you need to do within your organization. And again, you can have priority. It's critical. And you can add attachments to this. So one of the things you could do, and let's just close this real quickly, and we're going to look at this very quickly. With this part, with this drawing, every time you release that drawing, it created that PDF file. So what a user could do is take this PDF file and go in here, and we'll open this up. And once they have it open, they could then go in there and perhaps add some information to this. So perhaps they'll go in here and put some text. There we go. And there. So once they've marked it up the way they want to have it marked up, the user can do now is go in here and save this. And we'll save it to the desktop. And we'll call it markup. And then save that. And we can close this now. If we go back to the EC tab, here's the ECR, it's new. The user could select this, select view. Now when this first opens up, it is not editable. What the user needs to do is pass the mouse over the edit button. You'll see it's not locked, which means nobody else has this document open, so they can open it and edit it. They could then go to the attachment, select that markup document, and put it into the ECR data form. And now anybody could go in here, open that up, and see what information everybody needed to have shared very quickly. At this stage, the person that submitted this change request can say, okay, I now need to forward this on and submit this to an approval. And while we're here, perhaps they could do some changes to this. And we're going to submit that. Now, in this particular case, on this system, the workflow is going to manufacturing. Do they agree with this? It's going to go to engineering. Do they agree with it? And just like before, as it goes through each one of these states, they have the option of sending it out of workflow, sending out of workflow and terminating the ECR or place it on a manual hold. In this case, we're going to approve it, move it on to engineering. Now, as this form goes through this approval process, when it's finished, if it's all approved, it will transition into an engineering change order. So let's just go through here, and remember it's collecting the signatures as it goes through, and we're going to say approve. And then you'll notice now the form is an ECO form. It's got an ECO number, everything's been approved, and we can close that. And it's been accepted. So now would come the time when the user wants to incorporate the change that is requested on the ECO. They would select the document. They would go ahead and increment that document. And he's letting them know that, yes, there is the ECO that's been accepted. Okay. So then they could go into this part, do the changes that need to be changed. So instead of that, we'll find brass in here. Here we go, brass. Save that. Now, once that's saved, they can go back to the MechWorks browser. There we go. And they could check this in. and we'll select OK. And while we're here, we can say incorporated ECO. Okay. So now that's checked in. So now to release this at the revision B that the user wants, because it's going to go back to manufacturing, the user would mouse select this document, go to Lifecycle, Create New, create the engineering change notice. Now here you'll see that it has that ECO listed, but you also see it has a thing here called Fast Track. Now really all the Fast Track can be used when there's an emergency change needed, and it has to be made quickly without worrying about any existing ECOs. Hey, this has to be done right now. It's holding up manufacturing. The administrator can also have an expedited workflow approval process just for those fast-tracked ECN records. So this is something you could use within your organization if you decide, no, I don't want anything fast-tracked, has to have ECOs, then that's the way this would be configured. But in our case, we've incorporated this ECO. So we'll select OK. Here's the ECN form. Notice it looks almost identical to the other forms. It's configurable, easy to understand and grasp the information that is being presented to the users. Also, you'll notice here that this description, changed material to brass, it inherited that from the ECO. If there was more than one ECO, this description would have all of the descriptions from the ECOs that are being incorporated at that time. We want a major revision, and we got everything the way we like it. We're going to select Apply. So now we have the form, and we've done the changes, so it's ready to be submitted to workflow. Now, if we created the form before we did the changes, checked it out and did the changes, it wouldn't allow the user to submit it to workflow. So we can see that it has basically the same information. You can assign users. You can do a change, reason why, improve quality, priorities. Remember, these are configurable to meet the needs of your organization. And at this stage, the user is going to submit this to the workflow. Now, when this is in a workflow, and before when in the IR, when it was in a workflow, you'll notice that it has a red X here. This is showing the users that this document is in an approval process. And if one was to close this real quick and select this document and try to lifecycle it, you'll notice the user cannot do it. It's in a workflow. So let's go back to our ECN here. We'll open it back up so we can quickly put it through the workflow. Again, pass it over the edit. Nobody has it open. It's now editable. And on this workflow, oh, it's going through a lot of people. All right, so we're not going to go through all these today, but as you can see, it's the same as the others as far as the workflow. You have a different type of workflow. As it goes through each group, individual personal groups, they can have the same controls over it. They could approve it. You could look at these engineering change process and have a group meeting, and all these different departments could be represented in a room at one time and go through all these at one time. There's lots of uses to the engineering change process. So I'd strongly suggest if it's something you're interested in, you go take a look at our webinar just on the engineering change. Okay, let's move on to the next thing. I'm sure there are times when you have an existing assembly and you want to make a new assembly using that existing assembly as the template for making the new one. Perhaps some parts is going to be the same, some parts are going to be changed. With MechWorks PDM, this is very easy. We'll select this assembly here. And what the user wants to do is to take this assembly and we'll say, okay, the assembly itself plus this part, this one, and this one all need to be changed. They're going to have new part numbers. The others I'm going to keep exactly the same. Now to create this new assembly, the user would use the wizard up here. And you'll see there's one here that says assembly duplication wizard. So let's select that. Now once this menu is up, the user has the choice of selecting exactly how they want to create this new assembly. The first thing they could choose is the naming options. So they could use that automatic numbering for this. For this, what we're going to do is we're going to use replace. Right now, we're going to take in here and we're going to say, okay, for the Series 51, it's now going to become Series 35. And we have other options here that the user can set. For instance, do you want to have the drawings as well? Do you want just the first sheets of those drawings? There's other things here that allows the user to get exactly what they want in this new assembly. So if we simulate this right now, what it's going to show the user is the assembly they're going to get, the new part number, or they could turn around and say, you know what, I want to do all new parts, give them all new part numbers, because under the wizard, there is an assembly duplication cleanup. So if the user goes through here right now and says, okay, give everything new part numbers, and then when they're finished, they say, oh, there's a bunch there I didn't change. They could use that cleanup to take all those that they didn't change and put them back to the original part numbers. When the user has everything the way they want to have it, we'll say, okay, create that assembly for me. So MechWorks PDM will go through, create this new assembly. We'll let the user know if there were some components that it didn't create new ones of because of some criteria that was set. And also it'll let the user know if there was some parts missing that would affect the relationship of this assembly. So it created that, and we're going to select exit. Here is the new assembly that it just created. So here it is in Inventor. Perhaps the first thing the user wants to do is save this. We'll go ahead and save it. So now what the user perhaps wants to do is create a drawing of this assembly. And just like normal, they would go into here, create new, and create the drawing. We're going to select the template that we want. There we go. And then they could go in here and add the views that they feel they need to have in here. Now we just do that and we'll select OK. So now what the user could do is save this, and because the drawing is automatically linked to that assembly, it is going to automatically populate the title block area with the information, the description, the drawing number, the revision, all the relevant information in there. And perhaps now the next thing the user wants to do is add a bill of material to this. So we go to the MechWorks PDM ribbon here. We will select the view and insert bill of material. Here the user gets to choose which type of bill of material they want to put on the drawing. Each one of these is a different template defining what information will be in that bill of material. We'll select this one and we'll select OK. And that will place the bill of material on the drawing. And of course, position this bill of material where they need to have it. And we're going to move it up here. And it obviously has an anchor point, so it could always be in the same place on your drawings every time the bill of material is placed on it. So now what the user is going to do, we'll just save this real quickly. The user has the ability here to manipulate and use this bill of material in a way that would make sense to them. So the first thing the user could do is actually go into here, we'll go to the bill of material tab, and they could create a bill of material item, a phantom part. Perhaps there is some paint, oil, grease, or something that you wouldn't model that you need to have in this bill of material. So we're going to go in here and we're going to call it paint yellow. And we'll select OK. That will create a record card for that new item because it didn't exist before. And it added it here, and you can see it's highlighted in this salmon color. The other thing here, if we go ahead and refresh our drawing, you can see that it added that to the bill of material. Here's my paint, it's yellow. The other thing the users could do here is perhaps there's some items here that they want to change the quantities. Perhaps on these screws here, instead of one of them, when they ship this out, they might want two of them. Or it might be a case where you have an assembly with thousands of screws, but you only want to show a few of them on the assembly, but the bill of material, you want to have the correct number. The user would select this screw, they'd go to bill of material, and here they would change the quantity. So instead of one of them, we want 5 of them, and we'll select OK. So immediately, he's going to change it here, and he's going to highlight it in salmon. Again, if we go through and refresh the bill of material, we can see that it changed that quantity in the bill of material to 5. The other thing with the bill of material is that if one goes in, and we'll go to edit this bill of material, you'll see there's a column here that says make. The user can go into here and define whether actually I don't make this, I buy it, or I don't want it on the bill of material. There are some others here that are very useful. For instance, it says bill of material group, bill of material no expand. What this is used for, if you have an assembly with a subassembly in it, you could treat that subassembly as a part that perhaps you buy or is just a complete part, or you could say, you know what, I want all those subassembly parts on this top assembly. So let's just quickly look at that, and we will close that up, and we'll go back to the MechWorks browser real quickly. And I believe down here we have an assembly with a subassembly. So we go to the bill of material. You'll notice that a user can work on a bill of material from the MechWorks PDM browser. And this is the same whether you're doing this in an integrated license, it's integrated with Inventor, or the standalone license, the non-3D CAD license that works outside of Inventor. So other people within your organization can work on the bill of materials without having Inventor. So if we go to the bill of material, we'll edit it. So right now it says bill of material no expand. If we look at an Excel file of that bill of material, and we can select this one, and we'll select OK. When we look at the bill of material that this is going to generate for the user, that it has that subassembly in here just as the one part, and then has all the other parts of that top assembly. Now, if we go back to this and we say, okay, this time what we want to do is we want to have the bill of material group, and we'll save this, and we'll go and create that bill of material as an Excel again. There we go, and we'll select this, select OK. So that's going to generate that Excel file for us. See, this time has all the parts in the top assembly and all the parts in the bottom assembly. So this gives the users a lot of power on exactly how they want to treat their bill of materials. You can control whether you want to buy a part, make a part, whether you want the part on the bill of material, whether you want the subassembly to be treated as a single part, or whether you want all the parts of that subassembly on the bill of material. And as we saw, you can output this bill of material as an Excel file on the fly, and also have it on the drawing. Okay, so let's now just go to this part here. Another thing that is very useful with the MechWorks PDM is that if you have a part and you want to do a change to it, and you do some changes and you think, oh man, I didn't want to change that, I need to replace that part with another part that I know I have, or I want to replace a part with a subassembly, MechWorks PDM allows you to do that very easy and very quickly. So let's just take this part here, which is this one. We'll open this up, There we go, and perhaps we'll do some changes to it. And we'll just add some holes to this. So we'll go in here, select that. There we go. And we'll put another one in. Okay, and we could go ahead and go back to the assembly. So with these changes, perhaps the users decided they don't like them. They want to go back to the other design, or they know they have some of these buttons in the system and they want to replace this part with another part. So what the user can do is to go in here, select this part, which is this one, and say, I want to find the other buttons in here. There we go, do a search, and they can say, okay, I got this one, and I want to replace it with this one. So then they can go and select replace. It's going to let the user know, okay, you want to replace that 35-01 with 51-01. And the user says, yes. And you notice it replaced it for them. So this works really well, perhaps if you have a part that was replaced by a subassembly, or if you just want to replace one part with another part. As we saw earlier with the other assembly, this is great for searching for anything that you need and adding those into an assembly and building an assembly up that way. Okay, so let's now close this and we'll go back to the MechWorks browser. So one of the things a user may need to do is actually rename an individual part. Perhaps it was given a temporary name. Maybe it's used for a different customer and you want to change the name for that. With the MechWorks PDM, this is very easy to do. And it can be any type of document that you need to rename, you can. So quite simply, one would select the document that you want to rename, and we can go into here. So we have this part number. So to rename this, the user would go down to rename, select rename. This will present the user with the automatic numbering formats. The user could select the numbering format for the numbering schema that they need. Select OK. This will present the user with this format here, where it's going to show that it's going to have this new number, and this is the description. And they could select OK. So this will then renumber that for the user. So now that's renumbered, and you can see here it is. It's got the new number. It's still used by the same assembly, and it's just renamed it very quickly and very easily for the user. We will now look at working sets. And really, what a working set is a random grouping of records that the user wants to collect and apply an action against. So let's go through here. We're going to select some of these documents. So we'll say this one, that one, and that one. The user would then go ahead, right mouse select, and go to working set and create that working set. So these are the documents they've created. Now perhaps on these documents, they want to change one feature on all of them at the same time. So for instance, we go here, we go to working set. We can now see we have an expanded menu here with different options. And what we want to do is edit a document record. And perhaps what we want to do in here is if we go to properties, we want to add a treatment to all of these. So we go to treatment, go to the drop down, and we want them all to be painted. And we'll select OK. So this will then go ahead and do that for all of those documents. So if we go to any one of these documents, we look at the view data, go to properties, we can see that it added the painting treatment to all of them. So now if the user right mouse selects the working set tab, it will show the user all the previous working sets that have been created. And if we go down to this one here, this could be an assembly that exists that was for a customer do it. And if we select on any one of these and we go to view data, we can see that under the commercial, it was all for the do it company. So now perhaps the do it company got bought out by the make it company. And what the user wants to do is to change on all of these at one time from the client do it company to the client make it company. And this is pretty simple. Select all of them, go to working set, go to edit the document record, and then we can go to commercial, and we can go to the client ID, and we say here that we want to replace the do it company with the make it company, and select OK. And therefore, when the user selects OK, it's going to do that to all of those. And you can see in here that it changed it to the make it company. If I select on any one of these, it also changed it to the make it company. Now, the other thing the user could do here is that, okay, what I want to do is we can select all of these, go to the working set, go to the edit revision record, and in here what we want to perhaps do is say changed to make it company and select OK. And that'll go ahead and do that for all of these. So we go to any one of these and look at the record card here. We'll go to revisions. We can see that it changed it to the make it companies. We can see that it put that note in there that the user wanted on any one of these. There we go. So this is a very powerful tool. Allow the user to just have a random grouping of records that they can collect and apply an action against. So there are many times when the user collects information and it's in this grid area down here. And what MechWorks PDM is going to allow the user to do is, whether it's the list of the documents or the revisions or whatever, to quickly take those records and place them into an Excel file. So for instance, we could select all of these documents together and go Control-Shift-C, which is going to copy those. And then we can then go in and quickly open up an Excel file here, get a blank one. And now the user can paste this into this Excel file. And quickly then start using this and manipulating it in a way that would make sense to them. Perhaps open up some of these columns, see what the information is. The other thing they could do here is perhaps go into here, and probably what they want to do then is perhaps add some color to this or an accent this. But it allows the user to quickly take that information from the MechWorks PDM, put it into Excel, and then manipulate that file and use it the way they need to do it, just to get a list of documents, just to get some data out of MechWorks PDM and put it into an Excel file. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to go back to the PowerPoint and finish up here today. One of the important parts of any software is how good is the tech support. Well, PDM is all we do. It is our total focus. Our technical support staff have years of experience with PDM. They have attended training on all aspects of the required skills. Our training is accomplished at various centers or through training courses that we purchase. Now these include, but don't exclude, to training on the MechWorks PDM, Microsoft SQL, the .NET, the Microsoft operating system, Not only that, they get training on all of the CADs that we are integrated with, and also with the Microsoft Office products. MechWorks PDM has technical support offices across the United States. This allows us to cover different time zones. Therefore, we're ready if or when you need us. Obviously, our first goal is to fully understand your organization's needs. Once we know that, we can share our 20 plus years of PDM knowledge. Of course, our success is based on understanding your challenges and meeting them. We look at all of our customers, from the smallest to the largest, as being our partners. From top to bottom, our staff has years of experience across the full spectrum of industries. It is always our clear goal to accelerate your design cycle with a secure environment that is going to promote design integrity and to help you become successful with your document management needs. Wow, what do we look at today? We created a part with its drawing and had a quick look at the automatic numbering. Remember, that has its own webinar. We took that part and did some revision control, life cycling on that part. We looked at the engineering changes and workflow, went through that very quickly because, again, that has its own webinar. We looked at the document relationships, how we automatically link documents together. We looked at how you can create triggers that will output files when you need them, i.e. creating the PDF file, or it could be a DXF file, or whatever file type you need. We looked at the MechWorks PDM browser, how easy it is to understand and to see the information that is being presented to the users. We looked at the various search tools, how easy it is for everyone to find the existing documents. We looked at bill of materials. We can do single or multi-sheet bill of materials. We can control whether you buy, make, whether you want the part on the bill of material, whether you want to have the subassembly or all the parts of the subassembly on the top assembly. These can be controlled from the integrated license and also the standalone license. We looked at visual cues. What a great tool. This presents information to everybody in your organization that needs to see it. Does it meet ROHAS? Here's the information. Does it have an engineering change process? Here's the information. Do you have special handling instructions? All of those can be covered with visual cues. We talked about the release database mode. This is where everybody outside of engineering will only see your released documents. Local checkout mode. This is where you can work only on your machine and not across the server while you're working. We are directly integrated with Inventor, Solid Edge, SolidWorks, DraftSite, AutoCAD, SpaceClaim ME10, the Microsoft Office applications. We can accommodate all other file formats just by associating file extensions to the appropriate application. So I'd like to thank you for your time today. If you have any questions, please let us know. We would welcome the opportunity to provide a full product demonstration just to your organization's needs. Just give us a call at 1-800-573-6183. You can email us at sales@na-ips.com. Look at our webpage, www.na-ips.com, and you can see on there all the different webinars that we have and information that we provide. So again, thank you for your time. This is Glenn, and until next time, goodbye.